The Grim Reaper's Kiss. The underworld was a desolate place, filled with sulfur fumes, sharp gray stones, and a kind of ever-cloudy sky. Even so, there was no place in the world that the Grim Reaper preferred more. She felt comfortable there. She was free to be who she was, and one could even say that she had a certain reputation. That corner of the universe, where all the evil and the cruelest creatures in the world were housed, was the home of death itself, since she existed. The human world moved at a different pace than the subterranean beings, so it could be said that the Grim Reaper did her 8 hours and then had free time to roam hell. The 16,000th birthday found Death in a very bad mood. Her closest friends had come to congratulate her, but she was not comfortable. The fact that had been bothering the Grim Reaper for some time now was that she had never been kissed. Now, everywhere she looked, she saw couples whipping and torturing each other, and it chafed her to think that she herself had never received that kind of attention. Even her best friend, Medusa, with that hideous snake hair, had been lucky now and then. It is true that in the end everyone ended up turned to stone, but no one could take that away from her. Some time ago, with the help of the Furies and Medusa, she had been on a date with Cerberus, the hellhound. But when the moment of truth arrived, none of the three heads had wanted to kiss her. The Grim Reaper liked to have a fearsome reputation, but in this situation it was working against her, and it hurt her self-esteem that no one wanted to kiss her. On her special day, Grim Reaper was passing a tray of snacks among the guests who were sitting on the rocks of her cave, when Medusa came to see her all excited. Sipping her fluorescent green apple martini, her best friend explained that someone was there that night who was willing to kiss her. Maybe it wouldn't be someone she'd choose in the first place, but if she really wanted to live that experience, she'd have to settle. Excited, the Grim Reaper looked around at her guests. It was clearly not Hades, or the teenage-faced werewolf he was chatting with in the corner, nor the kraken that was devouring the salty food that he carried to his mouth with all his tentacles. Certainly not Cerberus, who had had his chance and had let it pass. Disheartened, she realized that the most likely person who was willing to kiss her was her last guest, Satan Jr. The son of the King of Hell was the most unpopular creature in the place, not just because of his fair skin, curly red hair, and freckled nose, but because of his daddy's boy attitude. He had always been rejected by the rest of the creatures of the underworld for reporting things to his father. The biggest incident, which nobody forgot, and which hindered his efforts to be accepted no matter how hard he tried, was referred to as the cotton candy failure. Sweets were a forbidden item, and having them was punishable by severe penalties in hell. This did not prevent the constant smuggling of them, and it was a highly paid product. A few hundred years ago, a group of krakens had sneaked a shipment of 1,000 pink cotton candy into the underworld, and Satan Jr. had discovered them, only to run off to tell his father. It took almost nothing for the young redhead to see how wrong he had been, and since that day, he had been the victim of the most intense bullying. When he learned that the Grim Reaper was looking for someone who would want to kiss her, but hadn't yet found a person, he thought it was the perfect opportunity to change his own reputation. That night, one by one, the guests departed from the Grim Reaper's cave, leaving her alone with Satan Jr. If Death had had a heart, at the moment they both sat in the stone chair to enjoy the last green martini, it would have beat 1,000 an hour. That coward would never have been the Grim Reaper's first choice, but she couldn't afford be picky. At least the young man was elegant. That day he looked quite good, with his suit and black shirt and his intense red tie to match his hair. Seeing that Satan Jr. was so nervous that his hand trembled as he raised the cup to his lips, the Grim Reaper felt she should take the lead. Reaching out her arm, she ran her bony finger across his face. He had to make a great effort to stay still. When the ghastly face of the Grim Reaper began to get closer to his, Satan Jr. thought that he was not going to be able to carry this through. But he was aware that if he backed down now, his reputation could no longer be fixed. In the worst-case scenario, he had never been alive. What harm could death do to him? At last, the moment that the Grim Reaper had waited so long for was happening. That was her first kiss. Her lips had finally met Satan Jr.'s, and both mouths opened, merging with each other. Despite the excitement of the moment, it bothered her to discover that no matter how dry and scratchy his tongue felt, he was somehow managing to drool all over her chin. She couldn't say it was an entirely unpleasant experience, but this wasn't the kiss she'd dreamed of. The moment both faces parted, the Grim Reaper thought the experience had been fine. Who would have thought that being death in person, she was ever going to have a life experience as intense as that? Smiling happily, she looked at Satan Jr. again and was surprised to discover from his attitude that he was interested in repeating the kiss. With the prospect that the second would be better than the first, the Grim Reaper brought her face closer to Satan Jr. After all, life was too short, and death itself deserved to enjoy a little before reaching the end of her days.